if you're introverted, you will never succeed in sales. At least that's what I was always told. And I believed it for a really long time. I thought that if you're quiet, reserved, you want to stay to yourself, that you will never be able to sell like those loud, extroverted salespeople. But here's the truth. I am introverted. I recharge alone. I overthink before I speak. And I hate small talk. And yet, I've trained myself to be an extrovert when I need to. So if you're introverted and you want to succeed in sales, you don't have to change who you are as a person, but you're going to need to change the way that you train. Because sales isn't necessarily about being loud. It's about being effective when it counts. And although Think and Grow Rich makes a great title for a book, and although all riches start in the brain, eventually you're going to need to engage with the world. There is no think and grow rich. It's think and take action and grow rich, especially when it comes to sales. Because you could take action like buy Bitcoin at $200 and then wait till it gets past 100,000 and then sell it. You can get rich that way. Or you can trade on the stock market, whatever. You might not need to engage with too many people if you're trading online, for example. But if you want to succeed in sales, you're going to definitely need to talk to some people. And even in your personal life, in your relationships, in your relationship with the opposite sex, you are going to need to talk to some people if you want to be effective in that. And so I'll give you a couple of steps that I took myself to become an extroverted introvert, an ambivert, as it were. And it really starts with that understanding and setting the intention that this is what I want to do for XYZ reason. So I understood that strangers have everything that I want. I'm trying to get rid of this hand now. Strangers, everything that I want is on the other side of talking to a stranger. So that's the first thing, setting an intention for that. And then the second thing is now I've got to train myself to actually talk to strangers. And to some people, this comes very naturally. And to others, they need to actually start small, like just saying hi to 5 people on the street one day, or saying, what's the time or whatever. Really small interactions, and eventually building up to more complex ones. You've got to get rid of your social anxiety as well. I mean, this probably very few people are going to actually do this, what I'm about to say, but going to a social environment, like a busy street or something, and then just shouting at the top of your lungs like, oh, at first, it's only going to come out of here because you're going to be so shocked and so afraid. In fact, your DNA might actually kick in and prevent you from doing it. Your DNA is going to tell you like, this is weird. Everyone's going to look at me and someone might pop out and stab me with a dagger. It's not going to happen. You'll realize very quickly that the world keeps continuing on and people will just look at you for 2 seconds and keep walking. But if you go there and from your stomach, if you express yourself fully and just go, oh, and you realize that nobody cares and people just keep walking. That will kill your social anxiety very fast. In fact, if you want to fast track your progress, go and do that. I'm sure most people won't do that. I'm sure for most people that is weird advice. Hey, it worked for me. I think it will work for a lot of other people if they manage to do it. But you have to be clear and be truthful to yourself. When the sound is only coming out of here, it's because you're constrained. We've all felt that when there's the moment where you need to talk in front of a group of people or something and you're not used to it, you might feel a constraint here that something is holding you back. It has to come from your stomach. Okay. That might take a few times to practice. I'm not saying it's going to happen on the first time, but what I am telling you is if you stick to it and continue talking to strangers, eventually you will get pretty damn good at it. The next thing I'll say is visualization, because the subconscious mind has no clue between what goes on in the physical world and what goes on only in the mind. And you have to use that to your advantage. Don't, for the love of God, don't visualize negative outcomes, okay? It's your own mind. At least train your own mind to be able to imagine yourself succeeding. So imagine yourself talking to that beautiful stranger. Imagine yourself closing that multi-million-dollar deal or whatever engagement, phone calls. Imagine yourself succeeding on cold calls. Whatever you're training yourself for, visualize that outcome daily, on a daily basis. It has to be daily. You need to keep a checklist. There's no way to do this daily without keeping a checklist. If it doesn't get tracked, you're going to slack. Okay, that's the second thing. So the first thing, break social anxiety by talking to strangers. The second thing, visualization. The third thing, and this is actually your advantage as a introvert, as you call yourself, because by the way, I don't subscribe to this whole thing. I think introvert, extrovert, although, there is some validity to it, it also depends on which you consider yourself. Because if you consider yourself an introvert, you're going to look for evidence of that. Or if you consider yourself an extrovert, you're going to look for evidence of that. And then you're going to say, that's what I am. But then again, you can just train yourself to be the opposite. And I think if you are introverted, you probably need a bit more extrovert. And if you are extroverted, you probably need a bit more introvert. You have to be an ambivert. You need to have both sides. Because what I noticed about the extroverts is they talk too much and they don't listen enough. And this is point number 3. That is your superpower, the ability to listen. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and they didn't say too much, but you leave the conversation going, you know what? I don't know what it is about that Bob guy, but I really like that guy. You've had that happen to you before? More than likely, yes. And the reason why, and I'll explain to you how that happens. They ask you an open-ended question. What's your favorite thing about your job? And then you say, I really like that it gives me so much freedom and the money's good. And most importantly, I like the impact that I can have on other people, how my job helps serve other people. I say, okay, that's interesting. So can you tell me about a time where you really felt the impact of your job on somebody else's life? And then you'll tell him the story. Yeah, one time I was working with this guy and he said that I blah, 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 saved his life. And now what's happening is that person has to go back to that favorite memory in their job. In their mind, they have to go back to that experience to be able to explain it to you. And they're listening to it and they're giving, they're giving cues, they're giving facial expressions of affirmation that they're listening. And now the association is being made in that person's brain between the dopamine from the good experience that they had there and this person in front of you. And they'll also appreciate the fact that you're curious about them because they are their favorite subject. So even in this video, I am not the main character in this video. I mean, I may be the one speaking to you, but you are the main character of this video. And that's why when I talk to you, I'm talking to one person at a time because it's only as one person that you even engage in this video in the first place. And so, yeah, those are the 3 things. Very simple. Boom. I'll break them down again. The first one, engage with the world. Talk to strangers. If you're feeling extreme, go and do the exercise. On the street. Second one, visualization. It's your best friend because it's in your mind. You can control it. You can have that experience that you're practicing for 100 times before you actually do it. And trust me, it's going to be much better than if you don't visualize it at all. Third one, listening. That is your superpower. Extroverts talk too much. They miss cues. They rush to fill the silence. They're always thinking, what am I going to say next? And you don't. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope that you find it useful. If it resonated with you and you want more tactical, real-world advice content like this, let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what's the hardest part of being an introvert for you in sales, and I'll reply to you personally. That's it for this video. See you guys in the next one. Boom. President Trump is a master salesperson. And he just took President Ramaphosa of South Africa to school in social dynamics. And it got me thinking, what if you were Ramaphosa? Imagine that you're standing in front of the whole world and someone drops a bomb on you, catches you off guard, and shifts the entire narrative to make you look weak and defensive. What do you do? Because let's be honest, as a salesperson, as a business owner, you're not going to be short of situations like this where somebody tries to challenge your authority, question your legitimacy, and make you look weak right in front of the world. So before I get into it though, a quick disclaimer. I'm not political. I'm not white. I'm not black. I don't take sides in this video. I'm simply analyzing the frame dynamics in play and then breaking them down for you so that you can learn the sales principles and the social psychology that's at play here. So please don't get political with me in the comments. This is about how to handle pressure like a boss, nothing else. So let's get into it.
No, when you look at the videos, I mean, how does it get worse? And these are people that are officials, and they're saying that kill the white farmer and take their land. That's what. And I have other friends in South Africa. I have people that left. One in particular that says you can't go there. He said they want to take your land. They take your land and they kill you. It's okay, and they say it's okay to do. Now we're going to talk about it, but this is a tremendous look. This is a story recent. These are all people that recently got killed.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it can get any worse. These are and you know, the men that you saw, the people that you saw in that movie, those are officials. Those are people that were in office. They had one march. They had a dance in your parliament, whatever you may call it, legislature.
Well, let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Let me clarify that.
Look at this moment. Trump has just shifted the entire narrative mid-interview, bringing up a charged, emotionally volatile situation. It wasn't a part of the agenda. This meeting was supposed to be about a trade conversation. But now the cameras are swinging towards Trump and the energy in the room spikes, and Ramaphosa looks like a deer caught in the headlights. He doesn't know how to respond, and his facial expressions and body language shows how uncomfortable he is. So let's take a look at how he responded to what Mr. Trump just said.
Of course, what you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
take land. And then when they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
nothing happens to them.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed.
So you can see here what's happening. Ramaphosa is playing defense. He's justifying, he's explaining what's going on. He looks like a man who's just, I don't want to make it worse. I just want to protect myself here. And that's the trap. In sales, in business, and in life, the moment you get defensive, you've already lost the game. You've already lost the frame. You're now explaining yourself, you're justifying, and you're reacting to the other person, and you're not leading. See, when he does that whole spiel about this is not government policy, blah, blah, blah. Trump just takes it straight back to, yeah, but you're killing white farmers. You let white farmers get killed. So Trump just takes the control back of the conversation. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting because if you think about objection handling, if you think about sales conversations, they can be the same way. If you think about negotiations and contracts and different things that people want from each other, this is no different. It's very simple. And that's why I started the video off by saying that Trump is a master salesperson. But the original question I posed was, what should Ramaphosa have done instead? I'll give you 2 ways that he could have handled it so that if you're ever in a situation like this, you'll know better. So the first one, option 1, is called the power question reframe. So the power question reframe is what actually inspired me to make this video. It's my favorite way of handling situations like this, and it's exactly what I would have done. And it goes like this. Instead, when somebody hits you with a loaded question, accusation, you don't explain. You just ask a better question that exposes the flaws in their frame. So in this instance, how that would have looked is when President Trump goes on about, they're killing the white farmers and so on and so on, you just ask, well, how did those white farmers get that land in the first place? So I'm Ramaphosa now, right? Mr. President, may I ask you something? You do know that there is no indigenous white people in South Africa, right? I mean, the indigenous people of South Africa are black. So a fair question might be, how did the ancestors of those white farmers come to own that land in the first place? Through conquest, through killing, through colonization and apartheid. Now, we're not here to repeat those violent systems, and we never will. But let's not pretend that this story started yesterday. There's more than one side to it. Boom. Now that's powerful. If Ramaphosa hit him with that in that kind of tone and that kind of energy, then he's not emotional. He's not defending himself. And he's just challenging Mr. Trump's premise. And by doing that, he reclaims control of the narrative. The second option in this case would be, if you didn't want to ask the question, it would be something like what Ramaphosa was actually trying to do in that justification, what he was trying to do, which is the leadership statement. Now, the leadership statement is when you lean into calm leadership and you think of an elder of a village, right? Like you speak like a wise, grounded father figure, somebody who's unshakable. And the way that he would have done that instead of what he did here was something like this. I'm Ramaphosa again. Let me be very clear. South Africa belongs to South Africans. We've had a painful past, a history of land taken without consent under systems of colonization and apartheid. Our mission now is to heal, to rebuild, and to ensure fairness for everybody. But what you're doing here, meaning by showing this video of the killings or of the speeches going on, would be like me playing a clip of the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s rallies and saying that represented US government policy. That would be misleading. And this is no different. There is no government policy targeting white farmers. There is no genocide. Let's not mistake historical correction for modern justice. South Africa is here and is about moving forward. Boom. Now that version, it still holds frame. And with gravitas and with clarity and calm certainty, it would hit different. But if you notice in the video that I just showed you, the body language and the energy of Ramaphosa is completely defensive, caught off guard, and quite frankly, like a man who's trying not to drown. So what's the takeaway here? As a salesperson, entrepreneur, or a leader, in high pressure moments, don't explain yourself. Don't shrink. Don't panic. You've got two powerful tools I've just shared with you, the power question and the leadership statement. And both ways are useful in holding frame, and frame is everything. In sales, in meetings, in conflicts, the person with the strongest frame wins the room. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to dominate other people. You just need to not fold. Ramaphosa could have walked out of that room like a king, but instead, like I mentioned, he walked out of there like a man who was trying not to drown. And we can learn from that. So then the next time someone challenges your frame, you'll know exactly how to respond. So if you got value from this breakdown, drop a comment below and tell me which way you like more, the power question or the leadership frame. And remember, in sales, in life, in business, the calmest man in the room is the most dangerous one. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Boom. What to do when somebody says, I'll think about it, or I'll get back to you. This phrase has cost people more sales than any objection in history. And I got a special guest with me today, and we were just talking about it off camera. I said, let me switch the camera on and share this with everybody else. Because it sounds polite, it sounds reasonable, even respectful. But what they're really saying is, just leave me alone. Or, I don't feel like saying yes, but it might be too uncomfortable to say no.
Yeah, it's like a way to escape the moment.
Exactly. And I think that most salespeople screw this up so badly. And if you have a sales team, if you have salespeople and they don't know how to handle this, you really should get in touch. What they say is something along the lines of, sure, no worries, take your time. Do you know when you'll have thought about it? Sorry for that. Maybe they don't do that. But they say something along those lines. They say, no worries, just get back to me whenever you're ready. And what they don't realize is they just gave the buyer disappear permission to disappear. And that's not leadership. That's not service. That's avoidance. So here's what you need to do instead. First, keep your composure. No neediness. And agree with them. Say something like, okay, completely understand. Totally get it. Yeah, of course. Just out of curiosity, though, what specifically would you need to feel confident moving forward? See, now you've just asked them what would they need to know to move forward, or what would they need? And then let them speak, and they'll probably say something like, oh, I'm not sure. I just need to think about it. And then you can follow that up with, okay, so let's say it's a week from now, and you still haven't decided. What do you think would have held you back?
Yeah, and that's powerful. You're not forcing them, you're just guiding them to the real reason.
Exactly. Because I'll think about it is not the real objection. I'll think about it is a smokescreen. And your job in that moment is to clear the smokescreen and get to the real reason they're not moving forward. And here's what happens when you do it right. They don't feel pushed. They feel seen. They get clarity, and then they start thinking out loud. And half the time, they even talk themselves into the sale themselves.
Yeah, and that feels better for everyone.
For sure. So here's the truth. Polite salespeople get ghosted. But clear salespeople get the job done and get paid. So stop focusing and waiting on getting follow-up calls that never come. Take control of the moment, because I'll think about it is where amateurs back off. And then professionals lean in with calm, grounded certainty. And so if that was useful to you, let me know in the comments below if you got any value out of that. If you have a sales team or you're a business owner that gets hit with, I'll think about it a lot, then get in touch. Let me know as well. And other than that, anything else from your side you want to add to this?
I think I'm good.
What to do when somebody says, I'll think about it, or I'll get back to you. This phrase has cost people more sales than any objection in history. And I got a special guest with me today, and we were just talking about it off camera. I said, let me switch the camera on and share this with everybody else, because it sounds polite. It sounds reasonable, even respectful. But what they're really saying is, just leave me alone. Or, I don't feel like saying yes, but it might be too uncomfortable to say no.
Yeah, it's like a way to escape the moment.
Exactly. And I think that most salespeople screw this up so badly. And if you have a sales team, if you have salespeople and they don't know how to handle this, you really should get in touch. What they say is something along the lines of, sure, no worries, take your time. Do you know when you'll have thought about it? Sorry for that. Maybe they don't do that. But they say something along those lines. They say, no worries, just get back to me whenever you're ready. And what they don't realize is they just gave the buyer disappear permission to disappear. And that's not leadership. That's not service. That's avoidance. So here's what you need to do instead. First, keep your composure. No neediness. And agree with them. Say something like, okay, completely understand. Totally get it. Yeah, of course. Just out of curiosity though, what specifically would you need to feel confident moving forward? See, now you've just asked them what would they need to know to move forward, or what would they need? And then let them speak, and they'll probably say something like, oh, I'm not sure, I just need to think about it. And then you can follow that up with, okay, so let's say it's a week from now, and you still haven't decided. What do you think would have held you back?
Yeah, and that's powerful. You're not forcing them, you're just guiding them to the real reason.
Exactly. Because I'll think about it is not the real objection. I'll think about it is a smokescreen. And your job in that moment is to clear the smokescreen and get to the real reason they're not moving forward. And here's what happens when you do it right. They don't feel pushed. They feel seen. They get clarity, and then they start thinking out loud. And half the time, they even talk themselves into the sale themselves.
Yeah, and that feels better for everyone.
For sure. So here's the truth. Polite salespeople get ghosted. But clear salespeople get the job done and get paid. So stop focusing and waiting on getting follow-up calls that never come. Take control of the moment, because I'll think about it is where amateurs back off. And then professionals lean in with calm, grounded certainty. And so if that was useful to you, let me know in the comments below if you got any value out of that. If you have a sales team or you're a business owner that gets hit with, I'll think about it a lot, then get in touch. Let me know as well. And other than that, anything else from your side you want to add to this?
I think I'm good.
I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you are selling completely wrong, and it's costing you an absolute fortune. And I'll show you what I mean by sharing a little story with you. Now, my dog's in this video. He wants to be in it as well. But the story goes like this. About 2 days ago, me and my friend went shopping for suits. And the tailor that we went to has been selling suits for about 50 years. Now, I'm a good salesperson. In fact, I'm a great salesperson. But I also know when to be quiet, when to observe, and when to absorb. So that's exactly what I did. And what I observed is the exact reason why most salespeople suck at sales. Because we probably spent about an hour in that store buying suits. But we probably spent about 10 minutes, if even, talking about suits. We spent about 50 minutes talking about everything else under the sun other than suits. And I said it to Louis afterwards. Louis is the tailor's name. I said it to Louis. You know, the interesting thing about your sales process, Louis, is that when you sell a suit, you don't sell the suit. You sell the man who wears the suit. And the thing that most salespeople do instead is when they're selling a product or service, they'll spend most of the time talking about the product or service, the features, the benefits, the details. But they'll spend about 10 minutes or 10% of the time talking about the actual person who's going to be buying the suit, usually at the start of the conversation, before they get into the product or service and the pitch. And my advice here is to flip that on its head. Talk about the person. Don't talk about the product or service. If they ask you about the product or service, yes, of course, you have to talk about it then, but focus on them. Make them feel really good by asking them questions about their lives. We're all our favorite subjects. And that leads me on to the next point. The identity of the person who's buying the product or service is super important. So who they see themselves as or who they aspire to be is critical in making that sale. Because if you can align your product or service with who they see themselves as or who they aspire to be, and it has to be in their head. They have to reach that conclusion on their own. It's not you who gets to decide this product or service fits exactly who you see yourself as. They have to reach that conclusion themselves. But if you can do that, then they're going to sell themselves on why they should buy your product or service. And the last thing that I took away from that experience is that the best sales interactions are highly personal. Like I said, we spent about an hour in the store. We spent 50 minutes talking about ourselves. They're curious about us. They're talking to us about, all their stories, our stories. And by the end, when we left the store, both of us felt amazing, me and my friend. And it got me thinking, we probably spent about 4,000 euros between us in that store. And what did we actually buy? A jacket, some pants. Now, that's an expensive jacket and some pants, right? But because when I think about my first car, the first car that I ever owned was about the same price as the suit that I just bought. And for some reason, I feel amazing about that. That's the sale. That's the sale. And the reason for that is because it's the experience. And if the product or service is good, and I know it's good, if I believe it's good, then I'm open to being that buyer. Even though I observed the sales process completely, I know exactly what's going on at different points of the sales process. I have an analytical mind, so I'm looking at everything they're saying word for word, and I'm analyzing what's going on. But you enjoy it. Even if you're a salesperson yourself, you enjoy buying good experiences and observing other people's sales processes. So that's it for this video. The 3 points to take away from this are: most salespeople focus on the product or service. Don't do that. Focus on the person who's buying it. Understand their identity. Understand who they see themselves as and who they want to be. And then lastly, make it personal. I know that if I call Louis right now, the tailor, and I say, Louis, there's a problem with one of my suits. I bought many suits from him over the years. If I say to him, there's a problem with one of these suits, he's going to be like, yeah, bring it in tomorrow. We'll fix it for you. So there's a level of trust there because we've had conversations about other things other than just suits. So that's what I would advise you to do. Hopefully you find this video useful, talking about my suit story, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Boom. What separates top-level salespeople from mediocre ones? Now, I'll give you a clue. It has nothing to do with how they dress. It has nothing to do with the lines they use or their scripts. It even has nothing to do with what they sell. Should I tell you? It has everything to do with emotional state, the emotional state that they feel themselves and the emotional state that they transfer to their prospects and clients. And what got me thinking about this video was I was in the Dubai Mall with a good friend of mine, and we were walking past an ice cream stand, and my friend playfully asked the ice cream stand guy, "Hey, is that the best ice cream in the mall?" And the ice cream stand guy goes, I'm not really sure," in a very uncertain voice. And my friend goes, "Okay, cool, bro." And we kept walking. And I said to him after, "Isn't it so interesting that if that guy just said to you in an absolute certain tone, like, yes, absolutely, this is the best ice cream in the whole mall. In fact, if you find a better ice cream than ours and you come back to me, I'll give you your money back. Here's a little scoop taste test. Which would you like, the medium or the large ice cream?" My friend would have walked away from that stand with an ice cream in his hand. So what it made me realize in that moment is how powerful emotional transference is when it comes to sales. People buy based on emotion and they justify with logic. So we've all heard that saying, and it makes you realize it's not about the information. Like, best ice cream in the mall, that's a subjective question. So that information is relative, but the emotion that he transferred is what mattered in that instance. And a lot of sales is like that. I mean, if you face objections in sales, you just have to understand what's the emotion behind it. So if somebody says to you, "It's too expensive," the emotion behind that is the fear of losing money and maybe not seeing the value proposition. If they say, "I need to think about it," then they just feel overwhelmed or uncertain. If they say, "I need to talk to my spouse or my partner," then the feeling behind that is one of needing assurance or that they're making the right decision. They need some backup. And so your job as a top level salesperson is to identify the feeling that that person is in and to shift it into a more desirable state. Now, what is a more desirable state, I hear you ask? And that's a good question. Well, obviously, certainty from the story that I told earlier, safety, urgency to make a decision, hope, excitement, and relief that I finally found what I've been looking for. And so how do you trigger the right emotion? I hear you asking, which is a good question. Well, if we go back to the story of my friend, if that guy spoke with absolute certainty, that would have created trust. If you want to create relatability, you tell a story that is of somebody that was in a similar situation as them. If you want to build hope and desire, you have to paint the after picture of what it's going to be like once the transformation or the purchase has occurred. You see, great sales doesn't feel like pressure. Because if you put pressure on somebody, how is that going to make them feel? It's going to repel them, right? Great sales feels like guidance. So if you want to take away anything from this video, if you take away anything from this video, I urge it be this. If that makes any sense, I urge it be this. Okay, this is what I want to tell you. Control the emotions and you control the decision. That's it. Top level salespeople control the emotions. Their EQ is exceptionally high. Mediocre salespeople just give information. That's the difference. That's it for this video. See you guys in the next one. Boom. If somebody tells you, "I need to talk to my partner or spouse," how do you handle that?
Yeah, we just actually talked about this.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to what it is that you're selling. If it's like a gym membership, for example, do you really need to talk about that?
I think if it's something for your health or personal growth, you should just do it.
Exactly. You should be able to make decisions for yourself that help you grow. But if it's something bigger like a house or car, something that impacts both people, then I think it might be a conversation to be had.
Yeah, I guess that actually affects me too. So that's different.
Yeah, so when a prospect tells me I need to talk to my partner, I don't immediately assume that it's true. Because let's be real, most of the time, that's not the actual objection. It's a polite way of saying, I'm not ready, or I just need to feel more assured, but they don't want to say that to you directly. So here's how I handle it. I don't push. I don't challenge. I say, completely get that. I'd want to actually check in too if I was in your shoes. But just out of curiosity, what do you think they'd want more clarity on before giving it a thumbs up? And that question flushes out the real concern. Are they unsure about the price, the offer, the timing, or they're just afraid to take the leap?
Right. And I think sometimes saying my partner is just easier than saying I'm scared.
Exactly. So once we surface that, I take it a step further and then ask, let's say they're completely on board. Are you personally in yourself? And that line is gold because it softly calls out the stall without making them defensive. If they say no, it's not the partner, it's about them. If they say yes, then we've got a commitment. Now we just need to align the other person. So that's when I'd offer, okay, we could just hop on a quick 10-minute call with both of you, just so they get all the information, no pressure, and they feel like they're in the loop.
Yeah, that's actually really helpful. Then at least the partner gets all the information too, and that's much easier.
Right. And it also removes the friction because what kills deals isn't resistance, it's confusion. And if the partner isn't involved in the conversation, but they're involved in the decision, that's a problem. You have to make sure that both sides have all the information, all their questions are answered, and they're both on the same page.
And let's be real, if someone truly wants to do something good for themselves, their partner is going to support that.
Facts. So don't fight the I need to talk to my partner objection. Just slow down, ask the right questions, and guide the next steps. Because if they really want it and they trust you, they're going to find a way to make it work.
And if you need permission to grow, that's not a partnership, that's parenting.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So if you find this video useful, let me know in the comments. Do you use the I need to talk to my partner spouse when you're in a situation like this? And if you're a salesperson or business owner, do you face the I need to talk to my partner objection a lot? That's it for this video, guys. Hope you guys find it useful. See you guys in the next one. Boom. Say the boom.
Boom.
If someone triggers you, here's how to get back at them. Now, I have to warn you, this is a really powerful psychological trick, so don't use it lightly and don't just use it on anyone. But once you understand this, you'll see how 99% of people are being controlled and they don't even realize it. Now, I'm a sales coach. So you might be wondering, what is a sales coach doing talking about emotional triggers? And I'll tell you. You see, sales isn't just about persuasion. It's also about control. Mind control, emotional control, frame control. But the hardest thing to control is yourself. You see, if a buyer disrespects you, if a buyer ghosts you, if a buyer lowballs you or insults your offer, and you react, you lose. But if you stay centered, you win. So the game is not external, it's internal. And the trick I'm about to give you, it's how the real professionals play the game. So how do you really get back at somebody who triggers you? You stop thinking about them. That's it. It sounds simple, but it's not easy because your brain wants to obsess. Your ego wants revenge. You want to prove them wrong. Show them and win. But here's the paradox. The more you focus on them, the more power you give them, which means keeping them alive in your mind feeds them energy and lets them live rent-free in your head, which means that they've already won. You know, I used to coach a business owner who would spiral so badly after rejection. One bad call, and he'd spend the next hours replaying the conversation in his mind, thinking about what went wrong, doubting himself, getting emotional. And I told him this once: every second you spend thinking about that person is a second that you could be building your own business, moving the needle forward, building your pipeline. Instead, he was just obsessed about what they said or what they did and not focused on what he could do next. And that's the same dynamic with triggers. It's not them triggering you. It's you triggering yourself through thought. And if you think about high status people, they don't get triggered. Why? They're not bothered because their attention is expensive. Think about the wealthiest people that you know, the most effective leaders, the top closers. They don't waste time being upset at people, thinking about people who upset them. They're too busy building their lives, building their businesses, winning, and living in alignment with their vision. So if you want to win, don't fight back, don't argue, don't react, just remove your attention. That's the ultimate power play. And I'll give you some advanced game here. You can't actually be triggered by something that has no truth in it or doesn't resonate with you at all. So if someone called you dumb, for example, and in your very core, you don't believe that's true, it just slides off you. So the only time you really feel it, if there's even a little insecurity inside of you, then you feel it. So the real trigger isn't their words or their actions. It's your belief system. It's your beliefs, which means they're not even the enemy. You are. So if you really want revenge, go so far that they can't reach you. Become so focused on your own growth that they stop existing in your world. Because the truth is, you can't actually beat people by reacting. You beat them by evolving. And look, that's why I teach sales from the inside out. Because no script, no tactic, no strategy is going to be effective if your emotions are all over the place. So if you want to master the mental side of sales and build unshakable inner control, then that's what I help people with as a part of my offer, and something I help with every day. So let me know if you want help with that. And I hope that you find this video useful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Boom. What do you do when somebody says your price is too expensive? Now, yesterday I covered the topic of what do you do when somebody says, I need to think about it, with my lovely partner. And today I'm going to talk about what do you do when someone says your price is too high. And we'll call it Death of a Sales series, because there's a couple of these Death of a Sales, and I thought, why not make it a series and program you to be able to handle these? Because if you're going to watch content and you're going to be programmed anyway, you may as well do it in a way that ends up being useful to you somewhere in life. Because let's be honest, somewhere in life, you will definitely need to know how to handle these objections and how to sell. And that's my website, by the way, howtosell.io. So let's get into it. The first thing is, it's too expensive is never about the money. It's always about the belief. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. So, most salespeople, when they hear it's too expensive, they go into price reduction mode. They drop the price, they throw in bonuses, they start offering discounts that nobody asked for. Or worse, they start over-explaining themselves of why the price is worth it. And I already don't believe you because I said it's too expensive and I kind of want out at that point, right? But let me be clear. Justifying is a form of begging in that scenario. And when you beg, you lose the frame, and then you're never going to be able to close the sale. So when I said it's too expensive, it's rarely about the price and it's always about the belief. What do I mean by that? because the prospect has to believe in you, has to believe in your company, has to believe in your product or service, has to believe in themselves to be able to use what you're selling to get the outcome or the result that they're looking for. So it starts with that belief. Now, let me share an example with you of how I can rewire you to see this. Let's say you have a mindset block in sales and you're not able to make enough money or whatever the case may be. It could be any of the big three. It could be weight loss, could be dating, could be sale, money related. And you want help from me one-on-one coaching. That's what I'm selling you. Send you one-on-one coaching. And then I tell you that the price is $5,000. It's $5,000. And you tell me the price is too high. It's too expensive. I say, funny thing about that, I forgot to mention that with every one-on-one coaching package, I throw in a complimentary Ferrari, brand new, complimentary Ferrari. It's included with the coaching. Now let me ask you this. Is it still too expensive? Like in this thought experiment, because even if you didn't have the $5,000 to your name, you'd find a way to get it, no matter what. Because now the value dramatically exceeds the cost. Before, you were kind of uncertain. You're like, I have this problem, but the cost, maybe the cost feels higher for you than the value. And then suddenly you know that you get 200, 300,000 euro car, dollar car with it, and it goes up, right? And so that's where most people go wrong. They get defensive instead of saying, it's too expensive and showing them that, they don't see the value in it yet. They start explaining why it's worth it. And in my methodology, the methodology that I teach, there's no defending. There's no justifying. We just reframe. It's like judo. You use the person's energy against them, right? So here's what you'd say instead. Hey, completely understand. Just so I'm more clear though, compared to what result or compared to what are you saying that it's too expensive? And now they have to think. They have to compare it to something. And usually they're just comparing it to nothing. Because to be honest, doing nothing to them in that moment seems like a much cheaper option, right? Think about it. I do nothing and I pay €0 and $0, 0 cents and leave this call or meeting. Or I go with this guy and I have to give $5,000 or 5,000 euros or whatever, right? Which is way more expensive. But you need to shift that around because doing nothing is way more expensive for them in the long term. I mean, if they still feel stuck, you can say, lean in and tell them like, okay, let's fast forward a couple of months, 3 months, let's fast forward. And nothing changed. You're still in the exact same situation. What does that delay cost you? And then pause. But it's not about stopping there, because that's just the tip of the iceberg. You need to really make them feel the pain. You tell them, listen, I want you to close your eyes. Picture yourself 90 days from now. Same stress, same bank account, same anxiety about where your business is right now. And then deep down, you know that you're only there because you didn't move when you had the chance. What does that feel like? And then let them sit in it. And by the way, that's not manipulation. That's just helping them see reality clearly, because that is the absolute truth. In the moment, it feels like it's more expensive to procrastinate because it's free to do nothing. But in the long term, they've been in that situation so long that they ended up in front of you for a reason. So you have to at least show them what they're doing. Because sales isn't about price. it's about value and cost. And in this case, you have to show them the cost of inaction, because there's definitely a cost of inaction. And when you hold that mirror up without pressure, no ego, not trying to, go on the other side of the table from them and try to force them to make a decision. No, I'm trying to go on the same side of the table with them, put my arm around them and give them clarity. And that's the truth of the matter, because buyers, this is when I say it's not about money, because buyers don't even buy when it's cheap. They say yes, they buy when it makes sense. And when the result is undeniable, it makes sense. When the cost of doing nothing is too heavy to ignore, it makes sense. So the next time somebody says it's too expensive to you, don't fold, don't flinch, don't start explaining yourself. Just lead them. Use psychology, speak to their identity, show them the outcome, and then act and make them feel the true cost of standing still. And that's not high pressure selling, by the way. That's just high integrity influence, you could call it. And that's how I would handle it. So now I want to hear from you. How would you handle that situation? How would you handle when somebody says it's too expensive? And send this to somebody who needs to hear it. Because chances are there's still a lot of people out there explaining themselves while we're out here closing sales. That's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Boom.